This is What If I Told You, the event psychology video podcast for event professionals in which Victoria Mady, event consultant and host, talks with the world's top minds in behavioral science, neuroscience, and psychology on how to transform events using insights about human behavior and mind. For more science-based tips, join Event Psychology Club at eventpsychology.gumroad.com. Also, check out Victoria's online course, Event Psychology Lab, at eventpsychology.thinkific.com, which covers key behavioral science concepts and offers research-backed solutions to your event challenges. This course is a unique opportunity to upgrade your industry skills and gain a competitive edge without adding to your already busy schedule. Now, enjoy the conversation.
Hello, I'm Victoria Mady, and this is What If I Told You, the Event Psychology podcast, where I talk all things event psychology, that is how to apply brain science insights in events. Today I'm chatting with Louisa Dunbar. Louisa started off as a standard web designer around 20 years ago, and over that time she has embraced the world of user experience and been immersed in anything and everything that can improve the success of a website. Behavioral science and applied psychology, along with neuromarketing, piqued her interest a few years ago due to the insights it can reveal, and she has since made that a focus in her agency for bringing about digital transformation within web and marketing teams. Welcome, Louisa. Thank you for coming.
Having me. Nice to be here.
Louisa and I got connected via a behavioral science club, a community of people from different backgrounds and industries who are passionate about applying behavioral science in their work for good. And then I saw this line on Louisa's LinkedIn profile. I have always had an interest in psychology, figuring out what makes people tick and click and do the things they do. And I thought, that's exactly what I say when I describe how come that I work on this intersection between events and psychology. Then, of course, I checked up what Louisa does, and I found a few other lines that are exactly how I feel. For example, an approach backed by science is common sense. I mean, can I repeat it again and again until we all agree? I immediately wanted to talk to Louisa, obviously, so here we are. And my first question, Louisa, would be, can you tell more about what you do? And how did you come up with this idea of adding neuroscience to user experience design?
Yes, of course. So yeah, we are a Neuroweb agency. That's how I like to describe us. And yeah, we design, we build, and we optimize websites. And it's all about getting the very best results for our clients and for the businesses and not-for-profits or organizations who come to us. And yeah, to me, as I said, as in your intro, I've been in the industry 20 years. So I have a lot of experience with websites, and it was always, apparent to me that websites should be more than just a sort of shop front. They should be working, and they should be working hard. They're the greatest marketing tool that we have in most circumstances. So it was always sort of my ambition to create websites that delivered those results in the best way that they can. So it was always sort of initially always about UX, user experience, and creating the best user experience. And, back in the day, it was just about using best practices, people shared ideas, shared stories, blah, blah, blah. And you implemented that based on what, Joe Bloggs did on another website. And, that's fine and dandy. And that's a good way of doing it, I guess, rather than nothing. But, obviously that evolved over time. And, we were always looking into what else could be done. And as you said, again, in the intro, psychology was always of interest to me. And, in all walks of life. So then I started to think, hang on a minute, these are sales tools. And so why shouldn't we be putting psychology together with these sales tools and creating, websites which applied these theories and best practices from that point of view. So that's where it started. It was sort of exploring the psychology and how it could be applied to websites. And yeah, that was sort of the seed initially. And then, with me, it's always about really trying to understand things and, what makes people tick. And so, yeah, that's when I found out more about neuroscience and the neuromarketing side of things. And so I wanted to understand what was happening in our brains when, we're making these decisions online. And then, just understanding that and seeing what happens and understanding what happens in somebody's brain when they're browsing websites, when they're, interacting with anything online, how we can sort of take that knowledge and use it to sort of our advantage, essentially, in terms of creating a website which, works for the user's brain, and how they make decisions and what content they need to be delivered at what time, at what point in their journey online. So yeah, that's kind of where it started. So yeah, an understanding of psychology and then the neuromarketing, putting that together, and then essentially, how that can work with optimizing websites, creating websites, and yeah, the rest is history.
That's fantastic. I find it very similar to how I started, marrying psychology and events, because it was just an insight one day why we are not using it more in events. Events are all about people, so we should obviously learn more about human behavior and mind. So, and I should say, you got this cool tagline, brainy websites. I really like it. And a website, like you said, a web page is such an important element. And for every event, it's such an important element because usually this is the first point of contact with the audience. So you definitely want to make it as persuasive and impressive as possible, right? But as pretty much with everything else, I believe there is more science involved than most people realize. And I'm wondering, why do you think we need to apply neuroscience and psychology to web design particularly?
Well, I think, I touched on it, but in terms of the fact that we are making decisions online, whether it's, about the branding, obviously, is such a big thing. And often the website is the first point of contact with any brand, with any business organization. And so we are making a lot of decisions and assumptions about, this is just in the initial part, a lot of assumptions about that organization, as soon as we go on that site. And so it's about, why, if you want to influence that, then, what you need to understand what a user and how a user is going to process that and how they're going to digest it and how they're going to interpret it. So that's point one. And then obviously you've got thereafter, once they're convinced to stay on the website, it's about they're going to be making heaps of decisions in that process. So they're firstly going to decide whether to stick around. Secondly, they need to decide whether or not they need to understand more, or then they're going to decide which page to click on next. And they need to be guided. They need to be nurtured through that experience. And so it's and if a website has a really clear goal to it, for example, signing up for an event or signing or buying a product, or filling out a contact form. Whatever it is, there is an ultimate goal usually on a website. So it's not only, you shouldn't underestimate what is involved in making that decision. And so, yeah, behavioral science is all about making that journey really nice and easy for the consumer, so that we don't present them with any friction points, we don't lose them along the way for any reason. We maximize the number of those conversions that website's going to get. So yeah, behavioral science is all about enhancing that. It's about understanding the user, their motivations, their emotions, because the decision-making process, no matter what subject matter, is an emotional process. So it is about understanding what those emotions are, and then creating a website which essentially works to them in simple terms.
Right. I agree so much with this point that we should not underestimate how every element of this experience of the journey affects how people decide to go around it, what triggers their emotions, and what ultimately leads to their decision to, for example, attend an event or click on a button on a website, right? And then if we know what goes into this decision-making process, then it's easier for us to tweak our own processes and our own work and make it more effective for the users and for our customers. My next question would be more specific. So I saw this on your website. It says the concept itself is called Neuroweb design. And I was wondering, what are the key principles of Neuroweb design? And
so I mean, what the heart of Neuroweb design is putting the user first. And that really means trying to steer away from a sales approach. You might be selling, you might want to be selling the event, you might want to be selling a product or service, but it is all about understanding what the user wants, really, and they don't want to be sold to. So the key principle, really, the key to everything, is about unlocking the user's mind, understanding what it is that they truly want. What emotions are they going through? Why do they want to sign up? Why might they want to sign up for this event? What is it about this topic which, might resonate with them the most? And then once you understand that, essentially you can modify the content to really, really resonate and appeal to them, engage them. So that's sort of at the core of it, and obviously we've got, in terms of the testing side of things and optimizing a website, obviously it's about trying to really draw out what those emotions are and at what points in the journey they might be feeling, particular emotions, for example, or, why, or really just trying to identify areas of friction which might otherwise go unnoticed without sort of the neuromarketing tools that we might use for this. In theory, when you do usability testing on a website, so you set tasks for somebody to complete, and they go ahead and complete them, you observe them, and then you ask at the end, what issues did you have with that website in doing those tasks? They may post-rationalize their experience, which in itself is obviously inaccurate, because we know that people are post-rationalizing, so they're not sure really. They think, oh, I must have done that because of that, but that is an inaccurate form of sort of feedback. So when we are doing usability testing with the Neuro tools, for example, GSR, galvanic skin response, EEG, eye tracking, that kind of thing. That's when we really, really understand the key points of friction and, what might be tripping somebody up, and when. So it's about uncovering the insights where you may not see them, in order to, you may think you have a really highly optimized website, but this will uncover, you will usually uncover some additional friction points.
How does this differ depending on the industry?
Actually, it isn't. The theory is the same across all industries. It's the users. I mean, I have in the past encountered people that say, "Oh, I don't think this is for us because our subject matter isn't emotional." So if you think that this doesn't apply to you because you don't think your subject matter is emotional, then I will tell you that 95% of the decisions we make are emotional. So it's, it applies to anything and everything. So, as long as the user is at the heart and they're making a decision, then, absolutely, it will apply to all.
In one of your blogs, you describe 4 levels of website trust. Can you explain what it is about and where event websites fit into that chart?
Yeah, sure. The theory behind this is that there are 4 levels of trust, and that basically is applied to different types of websites. So and it all sort of aligns with how much we are asking of the user. So, for example, the sort of the lowest level of trust that we need for a particular website would be for websites just offering resources. So you go on a website and it may have a blog, and you're just going. That's all you'll be visiting it for the article, for the information. So it's an information resource, and typically, users go on there and, to our own detriment, probably, we trust very easily what we read online. And therefore, you read it, if it sounds like it, they know what they're talking about, then you will believe it. So the level of trust there is fairly low. You don't need that much trust in order to, to use the site. Next from there is sort of the service website. So if you're browsing for somebody to help you with something, then you're not buying anything there and then. You're not committing too much there. But what you will be committing to is just by maybe either picking up the phone to call them, using their telephone number at the top of the site usually, or filling out a contact form on the site. So you're not risking anything, and it's all about that level of risk involved. So obviously the main commitment there comes after, and you're not committed to anything at that point. The next up are websites whose main call to action is a lead generation form, for example. And with that, users know that if they're going to pass on their email details, they know it's going to go somewhere, and it's going to be banked by that business, and it's going to be used to send out loads of newsletters. So users are really wary now of and know the value of their email address. So they need to know that if they're going to share their email address with a website in return for a PDF download or whatever, then they need to know that email address is not going to be spammed, etc. So I'm not going to be sold on, blah, blah, blah. So they need a lot of convincing on that website that that's the case. And then the last one from there was the transactional websites. So those are the ones obviously that sell it retail, selling something on the site. And obviously you're committing to sharing your, parting with your money. So you need quite a lot of trust in order to do that. So those websites need to work really hard at gaining your trust. And there are, I won't go into all the methods that you can do there in order to do that, and in order to build users' trust. But yes, hopefully you get the gist. So in terms of events websites, it depends. It depends whether or not you are charging for an event. If you are, then yes, you're going to need a high level of trust indicators on your website in order to build the user's trust. And I think even more so perhaps than, your regular product website, because being able to ask for a refund is trickier. You've watched, if you've signed up for an event and you've gone along to the event, be it in person or virtual, then you can't then say, oh, that was rubbish, can I have my money back? So, I mean, a good thing for events websites to do perhaps would be to say, even if, nobody might do it, just to say, we really guarantee you're going to have a great time. Here is our guarantee. And if you don't like it, you can have your money back. And it's just things like that might help get them over the line. And obviously if the event is free, like a lot of events, then, there is a lot less risk for the user. So, it could be, they're probably going to part with their email address though, for example. So yes, it's probably on the same level as the lead generation website.
So stating clearly, for example, if what is the refund policy and things like that is one of the trust indicators.
Yes, absolutely.
What are the other examples of trust indicators that event professionals can use?
So social proof is a big one. So any way that you can prove that the past events that you've held have been successful via testimonials, via case studies, via, any means possible, video testimonials are great. And just sort of money back guarantees, what they're going to get for the money and outcomes, just what you can expect from attending that. There are lots of ways that you can do that. And then you come down to the sort of exchange of money side of things as well. So, the secure trust indicators around that too. So that's another thing. And if it's done by PayPal, they can also have that extra protection that, they might get their money back. So, yeah.
Okay, so I want to zoom out a bit and talk about user experience in general. So what behavioral science or psychology concepts do you think are behind good user experience?
Well, specifically for events websites, so there are so many. So, and it really does depend on the type of website, but there are definitely a few that are that can be applied to pretty much all. So obviously, when you first go onto a website, the main thing I mentioned is about conveying. It's that general look, that feel that you get when you go onto a website thinking, oh yeah, I like, this feels right, and that is the halo effect. And, any business should really take this one seriously, because it could be, make the difference between, a good bounce rate and a really bad one. The halo effect, for anyone who doesn't know, is basically a cognitive bias that we have, and we place greater emphasis, greater trust, and we look up to things, whether it's a website or anything that looks better, that looks pretty, that looks presentable. We need to take advantage of that bias. And that's why we do create websites that look good, because that, if it doesn't look good, then the user will be a little bit skeptical of it. So that's the biggest one, I'd say. And then, there's things like, events in general, there's the risk of, the choice overload, and having too much to choose between, especially, when you're running the event and you might have, different streams, different, lots of different things to choose between, lots of different webinars, it could be webinars or, in-person sort of rooms to go to. I'd very much recommend sort of limiting that, really focusing in on the core, limit that choice paradox so that, you make the decision really simple for users. Other things, for example, that you could take advantage of are exclusivity. So if you make something really exclusive, it makes people want it more. So it's a really good one to try and incorporate in, whether it's an event or anything. So what part of it could potentially be exclusive? Perhaps it's an invite only event, in which case, that people who don't have that invite are going to really, really want it and really want to get in some way. So yeah, that's a really good one. A messenger effect is one that's not used as much, and one that, I really rate. We do a fair amount of websites for the charity sector, for example. And when you're trying to, and often that involves, people who are poorly or, whatever. So it's about changing the tone of voice on the website so that the message is coming from, from somebody who is the expert. So it might be a doctor, for example, in the case of if it's a health matter. Just anyone in the industry that people know and will respect. And if that voice is sort of coming from them, then it really helps to build trust. So that's another trust indicator, which I didn't touch on before. Social proof, I know we've just talked about it, but we can combine that with herd instinct. So if we see that, for example, there's a testimonial or number of likes on a page, for example, if we can see that number is huge, then it makes us want to be a part of it. So, for example, on an event, if you say, we've got 1,000 people signed up for this already, join them now, then that makes you more incentivized to join in, because you don't want to be the one who's missing out. So there's one more, so unity, that I really want to talk about. So it's Cialdini's seventh principle of persuasion, that's the word. And essentially it is all about sort of creating a community. And, I think, again, when you're running an event, you are trying to create a community. So it's about really emphasizing that and bringing that to life on the website and making people feel like they want to be a part of this amazing community. And there are a few events websites that do this well. So it's really about sort of enhancing that, showing that, it's a popular event, and people rate it, and to be a part of that whole thing. Actually, there's one more I just thought of. I really want to say. So the IKEA effect is a really good one. That essentially is about how people place greater emphasis on things that they have built themselves. So, for example, if you buy something from IKEA and you build it, you think yes, and you kind of you appreciate it more, don't you? So. You can use that same principle in websites, in events. So if you do have multiple streams and multiple things going on, if you can somehow allow the user to build that online, and fashion out their agenda, and save it, and it's all there, then that will become, they'll place that in much greater emphasis because of that very theory. So that's another sort of one that could work well for events websites.
These are all great behavioral concepts. I love it. Thank you for such a variety of ways to make it more effective. And what do you think of the user experience design for event platforms, online platforms? How it can be improved with behavioral science?
So I think a greater emphasis needs to be placed on putting the user first, essentially. So really getting to know them, what what are the real reasons why they are coming and looking and interested in coming to the event. And essentially, just changing it from talking about the event, so, oh, this event is all about this, to more about the user. Say basically identifying with them. It's about creating that engagement, creating that aha moment in the user when they come on and go, oh, that's me. Yeah, I could, maybe they've just described me perfectly. I could really do with going to this event because it sounds like it's just made for me. So it's about changing the language, changing that approach, in my opinion, to really sort of focus in on that end user and their motivations.
That's a great point. That's really a great point. So thought-provoking, I would say. Okay, and I know that you run your own webinars. What are your top 3 takeaways from that when it comes to user experience?
So I just want to say I'm quite a rookie when it comes to running webinars. It's not something I've run for very long. I would definitely say get somebody else to help you run them. I've tried to just run them all by myself. And set them up, I think, it's about trying to engage everybody and keep everyone engaged and, building that community. I have most certainly made mistakes along the way. Usually just tech errors. So that's why I usually say, get a pro on board to help you with this side of it.
Right.
But I would say that's probably my main takeaway.
Right. Okay. And a couple of final questions. So first of all, what in your opinion is one behavioral science or psychology insight that event professionals should apply immediately?
Okay. So I'm trying to pick one from what I've said already. I think the social proof, I think, that's a fail-safe. It's going to work. Obviously, building a community takes time. And obviously, changing your whole copy to position it from, another point of view is tricky as well. So I think, social proof, just round that up as much as you can. And incorporate that onto your site. Most people do, but it's maybe combining that with the scarcity, as I've said. So that would probably be my number 1 tip.
And the final question is, my podcast title is What If I Told You? So can you complete the sentence with one takeaway from our conversation? What if I told you?
You could increase event participants through your website through neuromarketing.
That's excellent. All right. Thank you so much, Louisa. And thank you for sharing your tips. And it's been an awesome conversation. I invite everyone to connect with Louisa on LinkedIn and check her company's website as well. And you'll find all the links in the show notes. Thank you for listening, for tuning in to What If I Told You, the Event Psychology podcast. And I remind you to join the Event Psychology Club, where I share a lot of practical tips for event professionals, as well as written recaps of the podcast episodes. And until next time, bye-bye.
Thank you.